Picture this: a moonless night, the air thick with the scent of damp earth, and something far older. You're standing at the edge of an ancient forest, the trees whispering secrets in a language you almost understand. Then, without warning, a shadow detaches itself from the darkness, too large, too wrong. Eyes like smoldering coals lock onto yours, and in that heartbeat you know this is no ordinary beast. This is something out of legend, something that shouldn't exist, but it does. And across the world, in every culture, in every era, people have whispered of these creatures, beings that defy explanation, that haunt the edges of our reality. From the misty highlands of Scotland, where the Kelpie drags the unwary into watery graves, to the dense jungles of the Amazon, where the Mapingary's roar chills the blood, myths of monstrous entities are woven into the very fabric of human history. These aren't just stories, they're echoes of our deepest fears, our wildest imaginations, and sometimes, just sometimes, they might be more than fiction. What if these tales were born from real encounters? What if, hidden in the shadows of our world, creatures beyond our understanding still lurk? That's the mystery we're unraveling today. 30 unbelievable tales of mythical monsters, each more astonishing than the last. We'll journey through time and across continents, from the frostbitten lairs of the Yeti to the sun-scorched deserts where the jinn are said to dwell. You'll meet beasts that defy logic, terrify villages, and even protect sacred lands. Some are born from nightmares, others from divine wrath, but all of them share one thing: they've captivated humanity for centuries. So, if you've ever wondered what might be hiding just beyond the firelight, stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll never look at the dark the same way again. Beneath the churning waves of the North Atlantic, where the ocean's depths swallow all light, lurks a nightmare older than the Vikings themselves, the Kraken. This colossal sea monster, with arms thicker than ship masts and eyes that glow like hellfire, wasn't just a sailor's tall tale. It was a genuine terror whispered in Norse taverns and carved into runestones. The earliest accounts describe it as a beast so vast, its rising could create whirlpools strong enough to drag entire fleets to the abyss. Norwegian fishermen spoke of waters suddenly growing unnaturally still, a warning that the Kraken was surfacing from the blackness below. But where did this legend begin? Ancient Scandinavian texts like the 13th century Irvar Odd saga depict it as a creature so enormous, sailors mistook its back for an island only to drown when it submerged. Even the famed Swedish naturalist Carl Linnaeus, in his 18th century classification of species, briefly listed the Kraken as a real cephalopod, citing fishermen's reports of massive, tentacled horrors. Fast forward to the age of exploration, and you'll find ship logs from Greenland to Iceland recounting encounters with devilfish that could crush hulls like eggshells. Some historians argue these tales were inspired by giant squid sightings, real creatures that, while not city-sized, were monstrous enough to fuel the myth. Yet the Kraken's grip on our imagination didn't fade with wooden ships. It slithered into modern pop culture, from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to the iconic Pirates of the Caribbean scene where Davy Jones unleashes it upon the Black Pearl. Even today, the Kraken symbolizes nature's untamed fury, a reminder that the ocean, for all our charts and sonar, still hides mysteries. So the next time you stare out at the open sea, remember, the old sailors might not have been exaggerating. They might just have been the unlucky ones who lived to tell the tale. High on the rocky cliffs of Lycia, where the earth itself seemed to hiss with heat, the Chimera was born, a grotesque fusion of nightmares. Picture a beast with the muscular body of a lion, a second head erupting from its spine in the form of a snarling goat, and a serpent's tail that lashed like a living whip. But its most terrifying feature wasn't its unnatural form. It was the flames that roared from its goat's maw, incinerating everything in its path. This wasn't just a monster, it was a walking blasphemy against nature, a symbol of chaos that even the gods feared. The Chimera's legend is forever tied to the hero Bellerophon, a mortal chosen by the gods to face the impossible. Armed with a golden bridle gifted by Athena and riding the winged horse Pegasus, he soared above the creature's fiery wrath, dodging plumes of fire that turned the sky into an oven. The battle wasn't just physical, it was cosmic. The Chimera represented everything uncontrolled and monstrous, while Bellerophon, with divine aid, embodied humanity's struggle to impose order on chaos. According to Hesiod's Theogony, the creature was born from Typhon and Echidna, two primordial forces of destruction, making its defeat a victory over the ancient terrors that lurked at the edges of civilization. But the Chimera's legacy didn't end with Greek myth. Its name seeped into language itself today. Chimera describes any hybrid creature or even a scientific marvel like genetically merged organisms. In medieval bestiaries, artists reimagined it as a demonic allegory, its three heads symbolizing heresy or moral decay. Modern fantasy, from Dungeons and Dragons to blockbuster films, keeps its spirit alive, proof that some monsters refuse to stay buried. Yet beneath the layers of legend lies a deeper truth. The Chimera wasn't just a foe to be slain. It was a mirror. For every era that retold its story, the beast reflected whatever fears burned brightest, whether the untamed wilderness, the dangers of unchecked ambition, or the horrors science might unwittingly unleash. The Himalayas hold their breath in winter, the snow so deep it swallows sound itself, until something massive moves where nothing should. For centuries, Sherpa guides have whispered of the Yeti, a towering, ape-like creature with feet like shovels and a stench like rotting earth. They call it the Migoi or Mete, meaning man-bear, but to the world it's the abominable snowman. The first Western account came in 1820 when British explorer B. H. Hodgson wrote of a long-haired, bipedal beast fleeing his camp. But it wasn't until 1951 when mountaineer Eric Shipton photographed a gargantuan footprint near Mount Everest, each toe distinct, the size of a dinner plate, that the legend exploded. Science has tried to tame the mystery. DNA tests on alleged Yeti hair, mostly bears from Himalayan brown to ancient polar bear hybrids, those eerie footprints. Often explained by melting snow-distorting animal tracks or even barefoot Sherpas traversing glaciers. Yet some details defy easy dismissal. Indigenous stories describe the Yeti's eerie whistling, a sound replicated by rare high-altitude winds. Sherpa elders speak of finding caves lined with strange, pungent nests of twisted bamboo structures no known animal creates. And then there's the Pangboch hand, a mummified relic resembling a human-ape hybrid, stolen from a monastery in the 1990s. Even skeptics admit the Himalayas are vast, unmapped, and hiding more species than we've catalogued. Hoaxes muddy the waters, from staged fursuits to fake footprints carved with hot irons. Yet the Yeti endures, not just as a cryptid but as a cultural touchstone. To the Sherpa, it's a guardian spirit, a warning against trespassing on sacred peaks. To adventurers, it's the ultimate prize, a proof that wilderness can still outwit us, and perhaps that's the real magic of the myth. In a world where satellites map every inch of the planet, the Yeti remains a shadow just beyond the lens, a reminder that some mysteries refuse to be solved. In the quiet river town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the autumn of 1966 brought something far darker than falling leaves. It started with two young couples speeding down Route 62 near an abandoned World War II munitions site, a place locals called the Tinti area. What they saw that night would ignite one of America's most chilling urban legends. A figure 7 feet tall with wings folded like a cape stood motionless in the headlights. But its eyes glowing, pupil-less orbs the color of fresh blood were what froze their blood. When it spread wings spanning 10 feet and chased their car at inhuman speeds, they knew this was no bird, no plane. This was the Mothman. Within weeks, over 100 witnesses, police officers, firemen, even a decorated army sergeant reported similar encounters. descriptions were eerily consistent: a grey, faceless humanoid with membranous wings moving silently despite its size. Some swore it emitted a high-pitched screech that made dogs howl for miles. Others claimed it appeared before disasters, car crashes, house fires, as if heralding doom. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, plunging 46 cars into the icy Ohio River. Conspiracy theorists linked the tragedy to the Mothman, pointing to sightings on the bridge that very morning. Skeptics dismissed it as mass hysteria or misidentified sandhill cranes, large birds with red facial markings. But cryptozoologists noted bizarre details. Witnesses described the creature vanishing mid-air, and radar anomalies were recorded near sightings. Even odder, Point Pleasant's Shawnee tribes told of a centuries-old prophecy, a winged omen signaling calamity. Today, the town embraces its infamous specter with a bronze statue and annual festival, but the questions linger. Was the Mothman a supernatural warning, a misunderstood animal, or something else entirely? One thing's certain: when dusk falls over the Tinti area, even skeptics watch the skies just in case. Deep in the murky waters of Loch Ness, where the peat-stained depths hide secrets older than Scotland itself, something stirs. The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately called Nessie, isn't just a local legend, she's a global icon. The earliest recorded sighting dates back to the year 565, when St. Columba supposedly banished a water beast terrorizing villagers. But it was 1933 that cemented Nessie's fame, after a couple driving along the loch claimed to see a massive, serpentine creature crossing the road toward the water. The following year, the infamous surgeon's photograph surfaced, a grainy black and white image of a long-necked creature that, decades later, was revealed to be a hoax. Yet the myth refused to die. Sonar expeditions have added fuel to the mystery. In 1954, the fishing boat Rival Roman 3 detected a large object trailing it at depths no known fish could survive. 70 years later, high-tech scans still pick up unexplained anomalies, gliding shapes too big to be sturgeon, too fast to be logs. Some theories suggest Nessie could be a surviving plesiosaur, a prehistoric marine reptile, while skeptics blame floating debris or giant eels. But what's undeniable is the cultural grip she holds. Loch Ness attracts millions of visitors annually, all hoping for a glimpse of that elusive hump breaking the water's glassy surface. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Canada's Lake Okanagan cradles its own serpentine secret, Ogopogo. To the Selkie people, this creature isn't just a cryptid, it's Nha'ayik, a sacred spirit of the lake. Indigenous oral traditions describe a shape-shifting entity demanding offerings before safe passage. European settlers later adopted the legend, with sightings escalating in the 1920s. Witnesses describe a 40-foot-long beast with a horse-like head and undulating coils, sometimes seen sunning itself on rocky shores. Unlike Nessie's solitary reputation, Ogopogo is often spotted in groups, leading some researchers to speculate about a surviving population of ancient whales or basking sharks. Both creatures share eerie parallels: deep, frigid home waters, sonar blips that defy explanation, and centuries-old roots in local lore. But where Nessie thrives on tourism and tabloid fame, Ogopogo remains shrouded in indigenous reverence, a reminder that some mysteries aren't just puzzles to solve, but stories to respect. So whether you're scanning Loch Ness with binoculars or standing on the shores of Lake Okanagan, remember, the water's surface is just the beginning. What lies beneath might just rewrite everything we think we know. Deep in the tangled heart of New Jersey's Pine Barrens, where the trees grow twisted and the mist never lifts, a legend has festered for 300 years: the Jersey Devil. Its origin story reads like a Puritan nightmare. In 1735, a woman named Mother Leeds, already burdened with 12 children, cursed her 13th during a stormy labor, screaming, "Let this one be the devil." What emerged was no human child. Witnesses described a grotesque hybrid, a horse's head atop a kangaroo-like body, leathery bat wings, a forked tail, and the blood-curdling shriek of a dying fox. It slaughtered the midwife with its claws before soaring up the chimney into the night, leaving hoof prints in the ashes. The hysteria that followed was explosive. Colonial newspapers reported livestock drained of blood, children snatched from cradles, and farmers finding their sheep ripped open with surgical precision. Panic reached such heights that in 1909, schools and factories across Philadelphia shut down as posses armed with shotguns combed the barrens. Even Napoleon's brother, Joseph Bonaparte, claimed to have seen the creature while exiled in New Jersey, writing of a winged demon that circled his estate at dusk. Modern sightings keep the myth alive. In 1961, a pair of truckers swore the Jersey Devil landed on their rig near Mays Landing, its red eyes glowing through the windshield before it vanished into the pines. More recently, in 2019, a viral trail cam photo showed a blurry, winged figure crouched over a disemboweled deer, though skeptics dismissed it as a mangy bear. Cryptozoologists point to peculiar details: sulfurous odors at attack sites, radiation spikes on Geiger counters, and the eerie fact that no carcass, not even a bone, has ever been recovered. What makes the Jersey Devil unique among American monsters is its refusal to fade. It's not just a cryptid, it's a cultural specter, embodying everything from Puritan guilt to modern ecological dread. The Pine Barrens themselves feed the legend, a million acres of wilderness where compasses spin and voices echo wrong. Some say the devil is a curse, others a misidentified sandhill crane. But for those who have heard its scream slice through the midnight pines, the truth is simpler. Some places breed monsters, and in the barrens the soil remembers. The humid night air of rural Puerto Rico clung thick with tension in March of 1995. Farmers in the town of Mocha awoke to a horror straight out of folklore: 8 goats, their corpses drained of blood through 2 precise puncture wounds in the neck, arranged in a perfect circle. Not a drop splattered on the ground, as if something had methodically fed. Then came the descriptions: a creature 3 feet tall with leathery gray skin, glowing red eyes, and quills running down its spine. The locals gave it a name that would soon echo across continents: El Chupacabra. The goat sucker had arrived. Within months, the hysteria spread like wildfire. Reports poured in from across Latin America, Peru, Mexico, Chile, each adding terrifying new details. Some described it as a hairless, kangaroo-like beast with elongated claws. Others insisted it had bat wings and fangs. By 1996, even the United States wasn't immune. Texas ranchers found sheep exsanguinated, their flesh marked with the same eerie punctures. The FBI was called in, testing soil samples for radiation. Conspiracy theories exploded. Was it an escaped government experiment, a surviving dinosaur, or something extraterrestrial left behind by UFO sightings that spiked alongside Chupacabra reports? Science offered explanations, though none could quell the legend. Biologists posited that mange-stricken coyotes or wild dogs, their hairless skins stretched taut over bony frames, were the real culprits behind livestock attacks. Yet inconsistencies lingered. Eyewitnesses swore the creature moved bipedally, unlike any known predator. Others claimed it emitted a high-pitched screech that paralyzed animals before feeding. Then came the viral photos, grainy images of something crouched over a carcass, too alien to be canine, too real to dismiss entirely. What's fascinating isn't just the creature itself, but how it mutated in the cultural imagination. The Chupacabra became a canvas for collective anxieties. In Puerto Rico, it embodied fears of American military testing on the island. In Mexico, it mirrored narco-violence, a silent, unstoppable force draining communities dry. Pop culture amplified the myth, from sci-fi channel movies to WWE wrestlers adopting its name. Even today, when a pet goes missing or livestock turn up bloodless, the shadow of the Chupacabra looms. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between mangy coyotes and mass hysteria. Or perhaps, like all great monsters, the Chupacabra's power was never about existing but about what it revealed. In a world where science explains so much, we still hunger for mysteries that make the night feel alive with possibility. And in the rustling cane fields or the deserts of the southwest, where the stars press close and the wind carries unknown scents, who's to say something isn't still watching? Waiting, sucking the blood from the world, one silent puncture at a time. In the shadowed cloisters of medieval Europe, where scholars pored over ancient texts by candlelight, one creature haunted their nightmares above all others, the basilisk. Dubbed the King of Serpents, this wasn't just a snake. It was a blasphemy born when a toad hatched a hen's egg, crowned with a grotesque white spot like a diadem. Its very breath withered plants, its hiss drove birds from the sky, and its gaze, oh, that gaze, could turn a man to stone where he stood. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder seeded this horror in his natural history, describing it as a serpent no longer than 12 fingers, yet so venomous that its mere presence cracked rocks and poisoned rivers. By the Middle Ages, the legend had metastasized. Bestiaries warned that even a knight's polished shield wouldn't save him. The basilisk's reflection could kill just as surely as its direct glare. But the basilisk had a twisted cousin, the cockatrice. Born from a rooster's egg incubated by a serpent, this hybrid monstrosity blended avian and reptilian terror. While the basilisk slithered, the cockatrice flapped on leathery wings, its beak dripping venom. Both shared the same murderous gaze, but the cockatrice added a sinister quirk. It could petrify victims with a single glance, yet was itself vulnerable to the sight of its own reflection. Medieval churches carved their likenesses into gargoyles, believing the stone effigies would ward off evil. Even the great Leonardo da Vinci sketched countermeasures, mirrors mounted on shields designed to turn the creature's power against itself. What's chilling isn't just the monster's lethality, but what they represented. In an age of plagues and unexplained deaths, the basilisk became a metaphor for invisible contagion. Its venomous breath mirrored miasma theory, the belief that foul air spread disease. The cockatrice, often depicted lurking in wells, embodied the fear of poisoned water sources. Yet these creatures also revealed medieval ingenuity. Herbals prescribed weasel blood as an antidote, claiming the small predator's natural aggression could kill a basilisk. Travelers carried roosters in cages, believing the bird's crow could paralyze the monster. Modernity hasn't erased their legacy. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter resurrected the basilisk as Slytherin's monstrous heir lurking in Hogwarts pipes. Biologists speculate the myths may have roots in real encounters with spitting cobras or the deadly horned viper. But perhaps the deepest truth lies in the name itself, basiliskos, Greek for little king. These creatures ruled through fear, proving that sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't the largest, but the ones that remind us how fragile we truly are. Imagine the kind of cold that settles into your bones and never leaves, a winter so relentless it turns the forest into a frozen wasteland. This is where the Wendigo thrives, not just as a monster, but as a warning etched into Algonquian folklore. To the indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes and Canada, the Wendigo wasn't just a boogeyman. It was the embodiment of a very real terror, starvation. Born from desperation, it was said that when a person resorted to cannibalism to survive the long, barren months, something unholy took hold of them. Their body would stretch into a gaunt, skeletal figure, their skin stretched tight over elongating limbs, their mouth frozen in a permanent, ravenous scream. The more they ate, the hungrier they became, a cursed cycle of insatiable hunger. The earliest written accounts come from Jesuit missionaries in the 1600s who recorded chilling tales from the Ojibwe and Cree. One story tells of a hunter who vanished during a blizzard, only to return weeks later with eyes like black pits and lips chewed bloody from gnawing on his own flesh. He whispered of a voice in the wind urging him to consume his family, By the time the villagers realized what he'd become, it was too late. The Wendigo had already chosen its next host. These stories weren't just entertainment, they served as moral lessons. In a culture where winter could mean life or death, the Wendigo was a taboo made flesh, a reminder that survival at the cost of your humanity was a fate worse than death. Fast forward to modern times, and the Wendigo has slithered into pop culture, shedding some of its original meaning but losing none of its terror. Films like Antlers 2021 reimagined it as a gore-soaked metaphor for trauma, with a child's drawings of the creature foreshadowing the monstrous transformation of his abused father. Other interpretations, like Until Dawn's video game Wendigo, lean into the creature's supernatural speed and bone-chilling screeches, a far cry from the slow, psychological horror of the original myths. Even Stephen King wove Wendigo-like themes into Pet Sematary, where the land's cursed hunger mirrors the creature's endless appetite. Psychologists have long been fascinated by the Wendigo, not as a physical entity, but as a manifestation of human extremes. The term Wendigo psychosis was coined to describe a rare, culture-bound syndrome where individuals develop a delusional craving for human flesh. While controversial, many indigenous scholars argue it pathologizes their beliefs. It underscores the myth's power. The Wendigo isn't just about hunger, it's about greed, addiction, the unchecked consumption that twists a person into something unrecognizable. Colonial exploitation, environmental destruction, even corporate gluttony, all have been analyzed through the Wendigo's hollow eyes. Yet for all its adaptations, the heart of the legend remains. Go to Algonquian communities today, and some elders still advise against speaking its name in winter, lest you attract its attention. The Wendigo isn't just a story, it's a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of human survival. And in a world where resources dwindle and desperation grows, its whisper on the wind feels closer than ever. In the smoldering ruins of a medieval village where charred bones crunch underfoot, the villagers whisper of the beast responsible, a monster with scales like armor, wings that blot out the sun, and breath that turns men to ash. This is the Western Dragon, a creature synonymous with destruction, greed, and the untamed wilds beyond castle walls. From Beowulf's fire-spewing foe to the gold-hoarding smog of Tolkien's Middle-earth, European dragons are conquerors, their very existence a challenge to human dominion. They guard cursed treasure, demand virgin sacrifices, and embody chaos forces to be slain by saints and knights alike. St. George's victory over the dragon wasn't just a feat of arms, it was Christianity's triumph over paganism, order over primal terror. Yet cross the vast steppes into ancient China, and the dragon transforms utterly. Here, the Long or Lung isn't a villain, it's a celestial guardian, woven into the fabric of the universe itself. Where Western dragons raise, Eastern dragons nurture. They command rain, rivers, and the very weather, their serpentine bodies undulating through clouds in rituals of balance. Emperors claimed descent from these beings, their robes embroidered with 5 clawed dragons to signify divine mandate. In Taoist alchemy, the dragon symbolized Yong, the active, luminous force of creation, often paired with the yin phoenix. Unlike the hoarding beasts of Europe, Chinese dragons were benevolent arbiters of cosmic harmony, their absence blamed for droughts, their presence celebrated in festivals with dragon boats and lanterns. The contrast couldn't be starker. Western dragons are solitary, their lairs stinking of sulfur and death. Chinese dragons thrive in communities, their underwater palaces long gone bustling with pearl-bearing attendants. Even their anatomies differ. Where European dragons boast bat-like wings and muscular tails, Eastern dragons flow like liquid silk, whiskered faces resembling wise elders rather than fanged predators. The Long lacks wings entirely, soaring through spiritual mastery rather than brute force. Yet both share a paradoxical link to human ambition. In the West, slaying a dragon marks a hero's ascent. Think Siegfried bathing in dragon blood to gain invincibility. In the East, the dragon embodies the ruler's right to power, but abuse that connection, and the heavens withdraw their favor. The Ming dynasty's fall was presaged by omens of dragons seen weeping in the Yangtze. Modern pop culture often blends these myths, but their roots remain distinct. Game of Thrones' Daenerys births fire-breathing Western dragons, while Spirited Away's Haku channels the Eastern archetype, a river spirit in dragon form, his suffering tied to environmental ruin. Both versions endure because they speak to fundamental human fears and aspirations, one of conquest, the other of harmony. And perhaps that's the true magic of dragons. They're not just monsters or deities, but mirrors reflecting who we are and who we long to become. Beneath the still waters of Australia's billabongs and swamps, where the reeds whisper secrets older than time, lurks a creature that has haunted the continent's imagination for millennia, the Bunyip. To the Aboriginal peoples, this wasn't just a monster. It was a fundamental part of the dream time, the sacred era when ancestral spirits shaped the land. Rock art dating back thousands of years depicts it as a nightmarish hybrid, sometimes a hulking, dog-faced beast with flippers, other times a serpentine horror with a horse-like mane. Its eerie, echoing cry, described as a cross between a boom and a wail, was said to herald floods or misfortune, a sound so unsettling that even the bravest hunters avoided certain waterholes after dusk. When European settlers arrived in the 1800s, they brought their own fears, and the Bunyip eagerly filled the void. Newspapers like the Geelong Advertiser breathlessly reported sightings, often tied to the mysterious disappearances of livestock. In 1845, a fossilized skull found along the Murrumbidgee River was claimed as Bunyip evidence, igniting a frenzy. Scientists later identified it as a deformed marsupial, but the damage was done. The settlers, already unnerved by the alien landscape, latched onto the legend. Some accounts described it as a tusked, walrus-like brute. Others insisted it had luminous eyes that glowed beneath the water's surface. The Bunyip's adaptability is what makes it fascinating. Unlike static European monsters, its form shifted with each storyteller. In some regions, it was a gentle guardian, punishing those who polluted sacred waters. In others, it was a ravenous predator, dragging children into the depths. This fluidity reflects the Bunyip's deeper role, a personification of the unknown dangers lurking in a land that refused to be tamed. For settlers, it embodied the terror of the unfamiliar. For Aboriginal communities, it was a cautionary tale about respecting nature's balance. Modern cryptozoologists have tried to pin it to reality. Was it a misidentified seal, a surviving diprotodon, or even a giant freshwater crocodile? Yet the Bunyip resists explanation, thriving in the space between myth and memory. Today, its likeness graces children's books and tourist trinkets, a far cry from its origins as a spiritual force. But visit a remote waterhole at twilight, where the air hums with insects and the water moves just a little too strangely, and you might understand why this legend refuses to fade. Some stories aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to remind us that the world still holds shadows even the brightest sunlight can't dispel. In the quiet river towns of Japan, where sunlight dances on clear water and willows dip their branches like fingers testing the current, parents whisper warnings to their children about something far less serene lurking beneath the surface, the Kappa. This creature, a grotesque fusion of turtle and human, stands no taller than a child but carries a menace disproportionate to its size. Picture a scaly, greenish body, webbed hands perfect for grasping, and a beak-like mouth hiding needle-sharp teeth. Most unsettling of all, the dish-like depression atop its skull, filled with water that grants it supernatural strength when full. To encounter a Kappa is to dance with danger, yet its legend is as much about mischief as it is about malice. Stories of the Kappa date back to ancient Edo period scrolls, where they're depicted dragging livestock into the depths or challenging humans to wrestling matches they can't afford to lose. Their obsession with politeness is their fatal flaw. Bow deeply to one and it will reflexively return the gesture, spilling the water from its skull and rendering it powerless. This quirk transformed the Kappa from a mere monster into a moral lesson. Parents used tales of its cucumber stealing raids, yes, cucumbers are its favorite snack, to teach children both caution near waterways and the importance of good manners. Leave a cucumber carved with your family's name by the riverbank, and the Kappa might spare you or even offer its expertise in medicine or agriculture. Cross one and it's said to drown its victims or suck out their entrails through, of all places, the anus. But the Kappa's legacy isn't just about frights. In some villages, it's revered as a guardian of water purity, punishing those who pollute rivers. During droughts, farmers performed rituals to summon Kappa, believing their control over water could bring rain. Even today, signs near Japanese rivers warn of Kappa, blending folklore with public safety. Modern pop culture softens its image. Studio Ghibli's The Great Yokai War depicts a friendly Kappa, while Pokemon's Lotad draws direct inspiration. Yet the original tales endure, a testament to how even the strangest myths carry kernels of wisdom. After all, isn't there something timeless about a creature that reminds us to bow respectfully, watch our step near deep waters, and maybe, just maybe, keep a cucumber handy just in case? High above the Great Plains, where storm clouds gather like armies and thunder shakes the earth, the Thunderbird spreads its wings, each beat a crack of lightning, each shadow a portent of power. For countless generations, Native American tribes from the Lakota to the Haida have revered this colossal raptor, not just as a creature of myth, but as a divine force intertwined with the very elements. Some stories describe its wingspan stretching from horizon to horizon, blotting out the sun when it soars. Others speak of eyes that flash like torches and feathers that shimmer with the colors of the aurora. But one detail remains constant: the Thunderbird doesn't merely fly. It commands the storm itself, bringing life-giving rain or apocalyptic fury depending on its whim. The Ojibwe tell of a time when the Thunderbirds waged war against the underwater panthers, their battles churning lakes into whirlpools and splitting ancient cedars with their strikes. Among the Kwakwaka'wakwa, ceremonial masks depict the creature with curved horns, symbolizing its role as a bridge between the earthly and spiritual realms. And for the Pueblo peoples, petroglyphs carved into canyon walls show the Thunderbird clutching serpents in its talons, a celestial hunter keeping chaos at bay. These aren't just tales, they're cosmological maps explaining everything from seasonal rains to the origins of mountains. But what if the Thunderbird's legend had roots in something tangible? In the late 19th century, as paleontologists unearthed fossils of pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus, a winged reptile with a 30-foot wingspan, some tribal elders noted an eerie resemblance to their ancestral stories. Could encounters with these ancient bones have seeded the myth? Or perhaps, as cryptozoologists suggest, the Thunderbird endures in rare sightings. In 1890, the Tombstone Epitaph reported 2 Arizona ranchers shooting a gargantuan, featherless bird with bat-like wings and a face like an alligator. More recently, in 1977, Illinois police sketched a similar creature after multiple witnesses described a massive avian shadow gliding over rooftops at dusk. Science offers alternative explanations: misidentified sandhill cranes or the extinct teratorn, a vulture-like bird with a 20-foot wingspan that once soared over North America. Yet the Thunderbird's persistence in modern culture, from tribal totem poles to Marvel Comics, speaks to something deeper than zoology. It's a symbol of nature's untamed majesty, a reminder that some forces dwarf human understanding. When storm winds howl and lightning stitches the sky, look up. You might just glimpse a shadow too vast to belong to any ordinary bird, and for a heartbeat feel the weight of ancient wings. High on the windswept steppes of ancient Scythia, where nomads buried their kings in mounds of gold, artisans hammered out a creature unlike any other: the griffin. Half lion, half eagle, this regal beast wasn't just a figment of imagination. It was a symbol of divine power, its talons clutching golden treasures in tombs older than the pyramids. The earliest depictions, like those found in the 5th century BC Scythian burial sites of Pazyryk, show it with the muscular body of a lion, the hooked beak and sweeping wings of a raptor, and eyes that seem to follow you across millennia. But how did this hybrid leap from nomadic art to medieval castles, and why does its form feel eerily familiar? One theory points to the fossilized remains of Protoceratops, a dinosaur with a beak-like mouth and frilled neck scattered across the Gobi Desert along ancient trade routes. Greek historians like Herodotus described gold-guarding griffins in the very regions where these fossils lay exposed. Could it be that nomadic traders, stumbling upon these skulls with their avian features and four-legged bodies, spun tales that grew wings of their own? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it seems. Protoceratops bones are often found in nests, reinforcing the myth of griffins as fiercely territorial parents, a detail echoed in medieval bestiaries warning travelers to avoid their clutches. By the Middle Ages, the griffin had soared into heraldry, its duality embodying the perfect ruler, the lion's courage paired with the eagle's keen vision. It guarded everything from English crests to the treasures of Byzantium, its image etched into shields and stained glass. Dante even placed griffins in Purgatorio as symbols of Christ's dual nature, divine and earthly. Yet beneath the pageantry lurked a darker edge. Alchemists claimed griffin claws could detect poison, while travelers' journals spoke of their feathers glowing in the dark, a trait some now speculate might have been inspired by iridescent fossilized minerals. Modern archaeology keeps the debate alive. In 2018, a dig in Kazakhstan uncovered a 3,000-year-old griffin figurine alongside petroglyphs of beak-headed creatures, older than any Greek account. Meanwhile, biologists note how real-life predators, like the harpy eagle with its lion-like mane of feathers, seem to mirror the griffin's fused design. Whether born from fossils, fauna, or sheer human ingenuity, the griffin endures because it answers a primal need, to believe that the fiercest, noblest parts of nature can unite into something greater. And perhaps, in the end, that's the real treasure it guards, not gold, but the boundless creativity of the human mind. The humid air of rural Haiti hangs heavy with the scent of earth and burning herbs, where whispers of the dead walking aren't horror tropes, they're part of a sacred tradition. Haitian vaudou's zombies bear no resemblance to the shambling, brain-craving hordes of Hollywood. Here, a zombie, spelled with an I, isn't a reanimated corpse, it's a living person stripped of their free will, a fate considered worse than death. The process begins with a boka, a vaudou priest who dabbles in dark magic. Through a neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, extracted from pufferfish, the boka induces a death-like paralysis so convincing, victims are sometimes buried alive. Days later, the boka exhumes them, dosing them with a hallucinogenic paste made from datura, a plant known as zombie cucumber. The result, a hollow-eyed puppet, physically alive but spiritually erased, forced to labor on remote sugar plantations. This horror isn't folklore. In 1980, ethnobotanist Wade Davis infiltrated Haiti's secret societies, uncovering case studies like Clavius Narcissus, a man declared dead in 1962 only to reappear 18 years later, claiming he'd been zombified and enslaved. Medical examinations revealed scars from nail-studded coffins and traces of toxins in his tissue. Davis's research, though controversial, sparked a chilling realization. Zombification was rooted in pharmacology and psychology, a blend of poison and terror weaponized by Haiti's brutal colonial past. Plantation owners allegedly bribed bokas to create obedient workforces, turning spiritual practice into a tool of oppression. Meanwhile, across the Caribbean, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead 1968 rebranded zombies as viral monsters, mindless, contagious, and ravenous. Romero's creatures, inspired by Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, reflected Cold War anxieties, nuclear annihilation, consumerism, and societal collapse. The irony, his zombies owe nothing to voodoo. They're purely American inventions, their rules, headshots, slow shuffling codified by pop culture. Even the Centers for Disease Control got in on the joke, releasing a zombie preparedness guide in 2011, a tongue-in-cheek campaign that accidentally went viral, proving how deeply these fictional ghouls had infected the collective psyche. The divide between the two zombies is stark. One is a silenced victim, a cautionary tale about power and loss of autonomy. The other is a blank slate for apocalyptic fantasies. Yet both reveal humanity's obsession with control, whether through magic, science, or sheer survival instinct. So next time you see a zombie flick, remember, the real horror isn't the monsters on screen. It's the knowledge that somewhere in the right shadows, the old magic still lingers, and it doesn't need a bite to steal your soul. Deep in the swampy heart of Louisiana, where Spanish moss drips from gnarled cypress trees and the water moves with unseen currents, the Rougarou waits. This isn't your typical werewolf. Born from the collision of French loup-garou legends and Cajun folklore, the Rougarou is a shapeshifter with a twist, a cursed soul doomed to prowl the bayous for 101 days unless it passes the curse by drawing another's blood. Picture a creature neither fully wolf nor man, with matted fur, elongated limbs, and eyes that glow like swamp gas in the moonlight. But what makes it truly terrifying isn't its appearance, it's the rules of its curse. According to Cajun tradition, the Rougarou's transformation begins with a sin. Some say it's triggered by breaking Lent 7 years in a row. Others whisper its punishment for glimpsing the creature and telling no one. The afflicted feel the change coming, a feverish restlessness, an unquenchable thirst for raw meat. Then, as the full moon rises, their skin splits into fur, their teeth sharpen into fangs, and the hunt begins. Yet, unlike European werewolves, the Rougarou isn't mindless. It remembers, it regrets, and worst of all, it counts the days. Sightings trace back to the 18th century, when Acadian exiles brought French werewolf tales to the bayou, where they fused with indigenous shapeshifter myths. In 1932, a trapper near Huma claimed to have found his neighbor's shack torn apart, the walls splattered with blood and clumps of gray fur caught in the floorboards. The neighbor himself was found days later, delirious and half-starved, whispering about the dogman that stalked him through the marshes. More recently, in 2015, a viral YouTube video showed a lanky, wolf-like figure wading through a flooded graveyard near New Iberia, though skeptics dismissed it as a prankster in a costume. But the Rougarou isn't just a monster, it's a moral compass wrapped in fur and fangs. Parents warn children that breaking promises or disrespecting elders might summon it. Folk healers traitors offer protections like rubbing salt on doorsteps or placing 13 small objects under a pillow, rituals blending Catholic and Creole beliefs. Even Mardi Gras revelers don Rougarou masks, turning fear into festivity. This duality, the creature as both predator and parable, reveals the heart of Cajun culture, a people who have survived hurricanes, exile, and hardship by laughing in the dark. So if you ever find yourself on a back road at dusk and the cicadas suddenly go silent, listen closely. That rustling in the reeds might just be the wind. Or it might be the Rougarou counting down the days until it's free, or until you take its place. The water's surface barely ripples as the sleek black horse emerges from the loch, its coat glistening like wet obsidian under the Scottish moonlight. At first glance, it seems almost gentle, an elegant creature with a mane that twists like living tendrils, but lean closer and the truth reveals itself. Those aren't strands of hair, they're snakes hissing softly as they coil around its neck. This is no ordinary steed, this is the Kelpie, and it has a taste for the unwary. Scottish folklore paints the Kelpie as a predator in disguise, a shapeshifter that lures victims with beauty before dragging them into the depths. Parents in the highlands once terrified their children with tales of how the Kelpie's back would lengthen to accommodate riders dozens could climb on, only to find themselves stuck, their skin fused to the creature's hide as it plunged into the water. Some legends say its hooves point backward, a sinister clue to its true nature. Others claim its hide is adhesive like flypaper for humans, but the most chilling detail. The Kelpie doesn't just kill, it savors the hunt, playing a twisted game of trust. The parallels to the scorpion and the frog are undeniable. Just as the scorpion can't resist its nature, the Kelpie is bound by its hunger. There's a haunting moment in many encounters where the creature speaks, offering rides with a voice like bubbling peat, only to whisper, "Too late. You knew what I was when you climbed on." One 19th century account from Loch Ness before Nessie stole the spotlight describes a farmer finding a Kelpie in human form, its teeth too sharp, its eyes too reflective. When he refused its offer of gold, it reverted to equine shape and vanished into the mist, leaving behind the scent of rotting algae. Yet the Kelpie isn't just a cautionary tale about strangers. It's deeply tied to Scotland's landscape, a personification of the capricious violence of its lochs and rivers. Before modern safety measures, drowning was a leading cause of death, especially for children playing near water. The Kelpie myth served as a grim but effective warning. Trust nothing in these waters, no matter how inviting. Even today, some swear they've seen a dark horse standing too still by the shore, its mane writhing, watching. And in a world where we've mapped every inch of the planet, isn't it comforting, in a way, to think some mysteries still lurk beneath the surface? After all, the Kelpie doesn't need you to believe in it. It just needs you to let your guard down. In the bamboo-thick jungles of the Philippines, where fireflies flicker like dying stars and the air hums with the chirr of insects, mothers hush their children with two words: the Aswang. This isn't your typical vampire. It's a shape-shifting horror, a patchwork of nightmares stitched together from centuries of folklore. By day, it might be your neighbor smiling, unassuming. By night, it sheds its skin, its torso detaching at the waist as the upper half sprouts leathery wings and the lower half melts into the shadows. Its hunger. Not just blood, but the tender, salt-rich flesh of fetuses and placentas, ripped from pregnant women with surgical precision. The Aswang's legend is as fluid as its form. In some regions, it's a beautiful woman with a penchant for seducing men before feasting on their livers. In others, it's a gaunt crone with a tongue like a proboscis, slithering through cracks to sip the breath of sleeping victims. But the most feared iteration is the tick-tick, named for the sound its elongated tongue makes as it taps rooftops searching for prey. Hearing it means death is near, unless you've scattered salt or blessed garlic, the only things that force it to retreat. Colonial records from Spanish priests in the 1600s describe entire villages paralyzed by Aswang hysteria. Families slept with knives under their pillows, while pregnant women wore anting amulets filled with herbs and prayers. Even today, in provinces like Kappa, locals swear the creatures are real. In 2015, a barangay captain in Iloilo reported a spike in livestock mutilations, cows drained of blood, their tongues split like grotesque flowers. Forensic experts blamed feral dogs, but the community knew better. They painted their doors with holy oil and buried placenta in sealed jars, just as their ancestors had. Pop culture has only amplified the terror. The 2015 horror film The Tribe reimagined the Aswang as a predatory cult, their rituals mirroring the creature's infamous placenta feasts. Meanwhile, video games like the Aswang Chronicle turn its detachable torso into a gameplay mechanic. Players must hunt both halves to survive. Yet beneath the gore lies a darker truth: the Aswang myth has often been weaponized. Historians note how Spanish colonizers used it to demonize Babylon priestesses, branding them witches to erode indigenous spirituality. During the American occupation, tabloids sensationalized Aswang attacks to paint Filipinos as primitive, justifying civilizing missions. What makes the Aswang endure isn't just its grotesquerie, but its duality. It's a cautionary tale about betrayal. The monster wears a familiar face and a metaphor for societal fears, infant mortality, maternal health crises, even class resentment. In a country where rural clinics are scarce and folklore fills the gaps, the Aswang becomes both warning and explanation. So the next time you hear a scratching at your window, ask yourself, is it just the wind, or is it something hungrier waiting for you to doubt, just for a second, that monsters aren't real? The wind howls through the gnarled oaks of an Irish glen, carrying a sound no mortal woman could make, a keening so piercing it chills the blood before you even understand its meaning. This is the cry of the Banshee, the Banshee, a spectral herald of death whose wail has haunted Ireland's oldest families for centuries. Unlike the grotesque monsters we've encountered, the Banshee isn't a mindless predator. She's a mourner, a tragic figure bound by fate, her grief-stricken wails serving as both warning and elegy. But here's what chills the bone: she doesn't weep for just anyone. Tradition holds that only the descendants of the original Gaelic nobility, the O'Neills, the O'Briens, the McCarthys, will hear her cry before a death in the family. It's as if the very land remembers whose blood once ruled it, and the Banshee is its voice. The earliest accounts describe her as a gaunt woman clad in grey, her long hair silver as moonlit mist, washing blood-stained clothes by a riverbank, a direct nod to the Celtic goddess the Morrigan, who cleansed the armor of doomed warriors before battle. By the Middle Ages, the Banshee had taken on her modern form, sometimes a beautiful young woman with eyes hollow as a corpse's, other times a hunched crone with teeth like splintered bone. But her purpose never changes. She appears in threes, her cries escalating from a whisper to a scream that shatters glass. Hear it once and you might dismiss it as the wind. Hear it twice and you'll start writing your will. What makes the Banshee unique among omens is her selectivity. While most death portents are impersonal, hers is deeply familial. The O'Donnell clan famously recorded multiple encounters in 1549. A servant described seeing a spectral woman combing her hair near Donegal Castle hours before the chieftain's sudden demise. Even during the Irish diaspora, the legend clung to displaced families. In 1892, a Boston newspaper reported an Irish immigrant family fleeing their tenement after hearing a woman's scream with no source, only to receive word the next morning that their eldest son had drowned in Galway Bay. Science offers little comfort to skeptics. The eerie acoustics of Ireland's valleys can distort sounds, fox cries, screech owls, even the wind through limestone caves, into something unnervingly human. But tell that to the mourners who have heard the Banshee's cry moments before a phone rang with bad news, or the farmers who have seen her hovering near a doomed relative's home, her mouth open in a silent scream. Modern parapsychologists speculate the phenomenon might be a form of crisis apparition, a psychic echo of grief reverberating across time. Yet the Banshee's true power lies in her ambiguity. Is she a compassionate guide, easing the shock of loss, or a tormentor, rubbing salt in fate's wounds? The answer may depend on whether you're the one hearing her or the one she's mourning. Either way, her legacy endures because she taps into a universal dread. That death never comes without warning. It's just that some warnings are louder than others. Beneath the craggy cliffs of Sicily's coast, where the sea crashes against stone with a sound like thunder, lies the cave of Polyphemus, the Cyclops whose single, bloodshot eye still glares from the pages of the Odyssey. Homer's description of this giant isn't just a monster story. It's a window into the Bronze Age's darkest fears. Picture a being so massive that his club could smash ships, so savage that he devours Odysseus' men raw, their bones crunching between his teeth like brittle kindling. Yet what's often overlooked is the eerie archaeological reality behind the myth. In the 19th century, excavators on Crete and Cyprus unearthed ancient elephant skulls, their nasal cavities gaping like a single, central eye socket, leading some scholars to speculate that these fossils inspired the Cyclops legend. Early Greeks, unfamiliar with extinct proboscideans, might have mistaken them for the remains of one-eyed giants. But Polyphemus isn't just a brute. He's a shepherd, a son of Poseidon, and a tragic figure duped by Odysseus' famous nobody ruse. His blinding, a scene of gruesome ingenuity where a heated olive stake becomes a weapon, echoes real Mycenaean torture methods. Even his curse, which haunts Odysseus for decades, reflects ancient beliefs in the power of a wounded god's wrath. The Cyclops embodies the untamed wilds beyond Greek civilization, a reminder that for all their wit, humans were still at the mercy of forces they couldn't control. Now shift from the sea's edge to the labyrinthine heart of Knossos, where another Bronze Age horror waits, the Minotaur, half man, half bull, its very existence a testament to human cruelty and divine punishment. Unlike the Cyclops, who roams freely, the Minotaur is a prisoner, trapped in a maze designed by Daedalus to hide King Minos' shame. Its origin story is a tangle of betrayal, Queen Pasiphae's unnatural lust, a vengeful god's curse, and the sacrificial tribute of Athenian youth sent to their death. The labyrinth itself might have been inspired by the sprawling palace of Knossos, with its 300 rooms and twisting corridors, a structure so complex that early archaeologists dubbed it a maze before understanding its true purpose. The parallels between these two monsters are striking. Both are hybrids, blending human and animal traits in ways that violate nature. Both are tied to real Bronze Age cultures, Polyphemus to the seafaring Phoenicians who traded elephant tusks, the Minotaur to Minoan bull worship frescoes found at Knossos. Even their downfalls mirror each other. Polyphemus is outsmarted by Odysseus' cunning, the Minotaur slain by Theseus' bravery and Ariadne's thread. Yet where the Cyclops represents chaotic, untamed forces, the Minotaur is a grotesque product of human failings, greed, deceit, and the abuse of power. Modern excavations add chilling depth to these tales. In 2014, a mass grave near Knossos held the skeletons of adolescents with markings consistent with sacrificial rites, fueling debate about the Minotaur's grisly origins. Meanwhile, geologists note that Sicily's Cyclopean Isles, named for the myth, are littered with elephant fossils, just as Homer described. These monsters aren't just figments of imagination. They're shadows cast by real discoveries, distorted through millennia of storytelling. So the next time you read of a hero battling a giant or a beast, remember, every myth holds a kernel of truth. And sometimes the truth is even stranger than the legend. On the storm-lashed shores of Scotland's Orkney Islands, where the wind screams like a dying thing and the sea churns with primordial rage, there's a creature so grotesque even the bravest fishermen bar their doors at dusk. The Nuckelavee isn't just a monster, it's an abomination, a skinless horror stitched together from the worst nightmares of land and sea. Picture a horse's towering, muscular body, its flayed muscles glistening with exposed sinew, veins pulsing black with venom. Now fuse its back to a twisted, humanoid rider, their limbs fused so seamlessly it's impossible to tell where one horror ends and the other begins. Its breath reeks of rotting kelp and plague, a toxic miasma said to blight crops, sicken livestock, and wither human flesh with a single exhale. The Nuckelavee's origins are as bleak as the Orcadian winters. Unlike most Celtic fae, which dance between mischief and malice, this creature is pure distilled hatred. Folklore claims it's the last of the Fomorians, ancient sea giants banished by the gods, forced to wear its own torment as a writhing, flayed prison. Its very existence is a curse one it liberally shares. During droughts, it gallops across the islands, hooves kicking up clouds of pestilence, its lipless maw spewing toxins that turn fields to wasteland. 19th century records from Stromness describe entire fishing villages abandoned after a Nuckelavee's visit, the air thick with the stench of spoiled fish and the eerie, guttural laughter it emits as it departs. But even this monstrosity has a weakness. Like many creatures of darkness, the Nuckelavee fears running water. Burns and streams act as natural barriers it cannot cross, a quirk that may hint at its saltwater origins. Freshwater burns it like acid. Islanders once hung charms of rowan wood over doorways and placed bowls of spring water at thresholds, knowing the creature would rather starve than touch a single drop. There's a haunting tale from the 1600s of a shepherd who, cornered by the Nuckelavee near Yesnabee's cliffs, plunged into a rain-swollen river. The creature howled in frustration, its breath turning the water's surface into a writhing mass of dead eels, but it dared not follow. The Nuckelavee's influence slithers into modern times. In 2018, marine biologists studying Orkney's toxic algal blooms noted spikes coinciding with periods of drought, mirroring the creature's legendary blights. Skeptics dismiss it as coincidence, but locals know better. They'll point to the odd, hoof-shaped pits burned into cliffside peat, or the occasional fisherman who swears he's seen something moving against the current, a shadow too large, too wrong to belong to any natural beast. The Nuckelavee endures because it embodies the Orkney's unforgiving nature, a reminder that some places, no matter how mapped or tamed, still hold terrors older than memory. And in those moments when the wind drops suddenly and the air tastes of bile, even the skeptics hold their breath, listening for the sound of hooves on wet stone. Deep in the tangled jungles of the Philippines, where mist coils around ancient banyan trees like ghostly fingers, travelers tread carefully, especially when the path starts twisting in ways that defy logic. Branches that were to your left suddenly loom on your right. Moss-covered stones seem to rearrange themselves when you blink, and then you hear it, the unmistakable click of hooves on wet earth, but with a rhythm that's all wrong. That's when you know the Tikbalang has found you. This towering trickster of Filipino folklore is no ordinary spirit. Imagine a creature with the muscular body of a horse, its coat matted with leaves and mud, crowned by a humanoid torso and a face caught between equine and man. Its eyes burn with a mischievous intelligence, and its hooves, here's the telltale sign, point backward, leaving tracks that lead wanderers in dizzying circles until they collapse from exhaustion. But the Tikbalang's true power lies in illusion. It bends the forest to its will, conjuring phantom voices of loved ones or trails that vanish into thin air. Get lost in its game too long, and you might become one of the Naglalaro, the playthings forever trapped in its labyrinth of leaves and shadows. Yet for all its menace, the Tikbalang isn't inherently evil. It's a capricious guardian of the wild, punishing those who disrespect the land or venture out after dark without permission. Old tales speak of farmers leaving gifts of tobacco or ginger at twisted crossroads to appease it. But the most famous trick to escape its illusions, wearing your shirt inside out. This simple act of inversion, turning the familiar unfamiliar, confuses the Tikbalang's magic, breaking its hold on your senses. Some say it mirrors the creature's own backward hooves, a symbolic echoing of its twisted nature. Others believe it's a nod to ancient Filipino spiritual practices, where reversing clothing signifies crossing between worlds. The Tikbalang's roots run deep. Pre-colonial Tagalog and Kapampangan oral traditions describe it as a shape-shifting Anito nature spirit, sometimes taking the form of a loved one to lead travelers astray. Spanish friars in their 16th century chronicles rebranded it as a demon, a tactic to erode indigenous beliefs, but the Tikbalang refused to be tamed. During World War II, guerrilla fighters in Luzon claimed the creature harassed Japanese patrols, its echoing laughter sending soldiers fleeing into minefields. Even today, jeepney drivers on remote mountain routes swear they've seen a shadowy figure with glowing eyes keeping pace with their headlights, only to vanish when they mutter a quick prayer. What makes this creature endure isn't just its eerie presence, it's the cultural wisdom woven into its legend. The Tikbalang teaches respect for nature's boundaries, the dangers of arrogance, and the ingenuity required to navigate a world where not everything is as it seems. Modern cryptozoologists speculate the myth might stem from encounters with the critically endangered tamaroa, a dwarf buffalo native to the Philippines, or even gangly Philippine deer glimpsed in fog. But for those who have felt the forest shift around them, heard the rasp of unnatural breath behind their necks, no scientific explanation quite captures the primal chill of realizing you're not alone and the rules of the world have changed. So next time you hike through those emerald depths and the trail suddenly seems to fold in on itself, don't panic. Just turn your shirt inside out, take a deep breath and step forward. The Tikbalang might still be watching from the tree line, but at least now you're playing by its rules, and that's the only way to win. The wind howls across the jagged cliffs of the Orkney Islands, where the North Sea crashes against stone with the rhythm of a restless heart. Here, between the foam and the fog, the Selkies emerge, seals in the water, humans on land, their existence a whisper of magic woven into the tides. These shape-shifting beings of Celtic legend are more than mere creatures of folklore. They are the keepers of a tragic romance, a story of stolen skins and broken bonds that echoes across cultures, from the icy waters of Scotland to the sunlit shores of Japan. Picture a moonlit cove where a lone fisherman spies a group of seals basking on the rocks. As he watches, their pelts slip away like second skins, revealing figures of unearthly beauty, men and women with eyes that hold the depth of the ocean itself. But this moment of wonder quickly twists into something darker. If a man takes a Selkie's pelt, she cannot return to the sea. Bound by a cruel enchantment, she becomes his wife, a silent prisoner of the land, her true self locked away in a chest or beneath the floorboards. These forced marriages are never happy. The Selkie may bear children, tend the home, even smile, but her gaze never stops drifting toward the waves, and if she ever finds her hidden skin, she vanishes without a second glance, returning to the sea and leaving her human life behind as if it were a dream. The parallels to other myths are striking. In Japan, the Ningyo, or mermaid, is said to weep tears of pearls but brings misfortune to those who capture her. Across Scandinavia, swan maidens shed their feathered cloaks to bathe, only to be trapped when mortal men steal their wings. The motif is universal, a magical being robbed of its freedom, forced into a life not its own, but the Selkie stands apart. Unlike the vengeful sirens of Greek myth or the monstrous Rougarou of Slavic tales, Selkies rarely seek revenge. Their sorrow is quiet, their longing palpable. Their stories are less about horror than about loss, the irrevocable cost of taking what isn't yours. One of the most haunting Selkie tales comes from the Faroe Islands. A fisherman named Oli marries a Selkie woman after hiding her skin. For years, she lives with him, bearing 7 children, but she never sings, never laughs. One day, their youngest son finds a strange, silken bundle beneath the house and brings it to his mother. She clutches it to her chest, weeps into its folds, then runs to the shore without a word. As she slips into the waves, she turns just once, not to curse Oli, not to promise return, but to sing a lullaby in a voice no human throat could produce. The children, it's said, grew up with salt in their blood, always drawn to the sea, as if part of them never truly left. What makes the Selkie myth endure isn't just its melancholy beauty, it's the unsettling questions it raises. Is love that must be stolen truly love, or is it merely another kind of predation? Some modern interpretations frame Selkie tales as metaphors for arranged marriages or the suppression of female autonomy. Others see them as ecological parables, warning against humanity's habit of taking from nature without thought for the consequences. The Selkie's skin isn't just a magical item, it's her identity, her freedom, her soul. And when it's taken, something irreplaceable is lost, but there's a flip side to the tragedy. In rare stories, a Selkie chooses to stay. Not because she's trapped, but because she finds something on land worth forsaking the sea for, not possession, but partnership. These tales are rarer, softer, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Maybe that's the real lesson of the Selkies. Not all magic must end in sorrow. Sometimes, when given freely, love can bridge even the widest divides between land and sea, human and myth, captivity and choice. So the next time you stand at the water's edge, watching the seals bob in the waves, listen closely. That sound isn't just the wind or the tide. It might be a song half remembered calling someone home. And if you're very quiet, you might wonder, who in this world is truly the captive? And who holds the key? The breath of the Gorgon is said to still whisper through the ruins of ancient temples, where stone faces with wild eyes and lolling tongues leer from archways. Most know Medusa, the snake-haired monster whose gaze turned men to stone, but her story is only one thread in a far older, darker tapestry. Long before Perseus raised his blade, there were Astheno and Uriel, Medusa's eternal sisters, the original Gorgons, whose very existence twists Greek mythology into something far more unsettling. Where Medusa was mortal, cursed by Athena for defiling her temple, Astheno and Uriel were born monstrous. Hesiod's Theogony describes them as winged horrors with brass claws, serpent-swirled hair, and eyes that burned like forged coals. Unlike their ill-fated sister, they were immortal, untouched by time or blade. Their origins trace back to the primordial sea deities Phorcys and Cetus, making them older than Olympus itself. While Medusa's story is one of victimhood and punishment, Astheno and Uriel represent something purer, unfiltered, ancient terror. They weren't cursed. They were calamity incarnate. But why snakes? The theory that Athena transformed Medusa's hair as divine retribution obscures an older truth. In Minoan and Mycenaean art, dating back to 1500 BC, snake goddesses wield serpents as symbols of regeneration and protection. Some scholars argue the Gorgon's serpentine locks weren't a punishment at all, but a remnant of pre-Olympian worship, snakes as conduits between worlds, their venom both deadly and healing. Medusa's decapitated head, after all, retained its power, used by Athena as a shield emblem and later by heroes to petrify foes. This duality, destroyer and protector, hints at a far more complex origin than simple monsterhood. The Gorgon's visage seeped into everyday life through apotropaic masks, grotesque carvings meant to ward off evil. Walk through the ruins of Ephesus or Delphi, and you'll find them staring from friezes and shields, tongues protruding, fangs bared. These weren't decorations, they were spiritual defenses, believed to repel harm by reflecting its own horror back at it. Even today, the Gorgonaean, a Gorgon's face, appears on amulets and ships' prows, a lingering echo of that primal fear and reverence. Modern reinterpretations keep the Gorgons alive. Feminist readings frame Medusa's curse as a metaphor for victim blaming, her transformation into a monster mirroring how society demonizes survivors. Meanwhile, Astheno and Uriel lurk in the shadows of Percy Jackson and God of War, their immortality making them relentless forces of nature rather than mere villains. Yet for all their pop culture reinventions, the Gorgon's essence remains, their mirrors. In their snarling faces, we see our own fears of the feminine, the primal, the uncontrollable. And perhaps that's why they still freeze us in place, not with petrifying gazes, but with the uneasy recognition that some monsters aren't born, they're made. In the swirling mists of ancient Indian battlefields, where arrows blot out the sun and gods walk among mortals, there exists a creature so steeped in deception that even the earth itself cannot be trusted beneath its feet. The Rakshasa is no mere demon, it's a master of illusion, a shape-shifting nightmare woven into the very fabric of Hindu epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Picture a being with skin the color of storm clouds, eyes burning like embers, mounted atop a tiger whose stripes shift like ink in water. Its laughter echoes with the sound of breaking bones, and its favorite game isn't just killing heroes, it's making them doubt reality itself. These creatures are the ultimate tricksters of mythology. In the Mahabharata, the Rakshasa king Gatotkacha, a half-demon son of the hero Bhima, towers over battlefields, growing his body to monstrous proportions to crush entire armies underfoot. Yet even he pales next to Ravana, the 10-headed Rakshasa emperor of the Ramayana, whose abduction of Sita sparks a war that shakes the cosmos. What makes them so terrifying isn't their strength, but their cunning. A Rakshasa might appear as a grieving widow one moment, a childhood friend the next, or even a beloved deity, all while its claws hover inches from your throat. Their power to warp perception is so absolute that ancient texts warn of warriors slaughtering their own allies, convinced they're fighting demons. But Rakshasas aren't just relics of parchment and temple carvings. They've slithered into modern Bollywood horror, their influence palpable in films like Roz 2002, where the line between possession and Rakshasa illusion blurs. The iconic scene of a woman's face elongating into something inhuman as her hair writhes like snakes, that's pure Rakshasa shapeshifting, updated for the digital age. Even regional cinema taps into their legacy. Tamil horror flick Pisasu 2014 features a vengeful spirit with Rakshasa-like powers, manipulating reflections and whispers to torment its prey. What's fascinating is how these demons reflect cultural anxieties across time. In ancient epics, they represent the chaos of unchecked desire, Ravana's lust for Sita, or the dangers of arrogance, Hidimba's attempt to trick Bhima. Today, they embody modern fears of identity theft, gaslighting, or the horror of realizing someone you trust isn't who they seem. The Rakshasa's blue skin, once symbolic of their otherworldly origins, now eerily mirrors the glow of screens that distort truth in our digital era. Yet for all their malevolence, Rakshasas aren't one-dimensional villains. Some, like Gatotkacha, fight alongside heroes, their hybrid nature symbolizing the duality within us all. Others, like Vibhishana, reject their kin to uphold righteousness. This complexity keeps them relevant not just as boogeymen, but as mirrors to humanity's own capacity for deception and redemption. So the next time a stranger's smile feels too perfect or shadows move just a heartbeat out of sync, remember, the Rakshasa's greatest trick isn't hiding in the dark. It's making you forget it was ever there at all. The deserts of Persia whisper with the echoes of a creature so terrifying. Its name alone sends shivers down the spine. Manticore, the man-eater. Imagine a beast with the body of a lion, its fur the color of sun-baked sandstone, but that's where the familiarity ends. Its face is disturbingly human, twisted into a permanent grin filled with triple rows of needle-sharp teeth. And then there's the tail, not a lion's tufted brush, but a scorpion's barbed nightmare capable of launching venomous spines with lethal precision. This isn't just a predator. It's a perfect killing machine, a fusion of the animal kingdom's most deadly traits, designed for one purpose: to hunt humans. The Manticore's legend first slithered into Western consciousness through the writings of Ctesias, a Greek physician serving the Persian court in the 5th century BC. His accounts, likely gleaned from travelers' tales and garbled translations, described a creature that devoured men whole, leaving no trace of clothing or bones. By the Middle Ages, bestiaries, those illustrated manuscripts blending fact and fantasy, amplified its horror. The Aberdeen bestiary 12th century depicts it with bat-like wings and eyes that glow like hot coals, while scribes claimed its voice mimicked a trumpet's blare, luring victims into the dunes before striking. But where did this monstrosity come from? One compelling theory points to mistranslations of Persian descriptions of tigers. The Old Persian word martia khvara, meaning man-eater, might have been misheard as manticore, morphing a very real big cat into something far more grotesque. Tigers, after all, were rare and awe-inspiring in the Near East. Their striped pelts, retractable claws, and occasional attacks on humans easily spun into myth. Add the cultural tendency to demonize foreign lands. Persia was the exotic East to medieval Europeans, and voila, a beast born from linguistic chaos and imperial fear. Yet the Manticore refused to be confined to ancient scrolls. It prowled into Renaissance art, symbolizing the dangers of unchecked desire. its human face representing seduction, its animal body primal hunger. Alchemists even sought its venom, believing it held the key to transmuting base metals. Today, it lurks in modern fantasy, from Harry Potter's venomous creatures to Dungeons and Dragons, where its tail spines paralyze adventurers mid-step. But perhaps its most haunting legacy is how it reminds us that fear thrives in the gaps of understanding. When faced with the unknown, humanity doesn't just see a tiger. We see a monster, one that, in the shifting sands of legend, never stops evolving. The glow of a computer screen casts eerie shadows in a darkened bedroom as a teenager scrolls through disturbing forum posts pixelated images of a faceless, impossibly tall figure in a black suit. This isn't some ancient folklore passed down through generations. This is Slender Man, a monster born entirely from the digital age, stitched together from collective imagination and the viral nature of the internet. Created in 2009 for a Photoshop contest on the Something Awful forum, Slender Man became the blueprint for modern myth-making. His blank face and elongated limbs tapped into primal fears of the unknown, but what set him apart was how quickly he escaped his creators. Within months, he'd spawned viral horror series like Marble Hornets, real-world sightings, and even tragic cases of copycat violence. Slender Man wasn't just a story, he was proof that monsters could still be born, even in an era of satellites and science. Then came Siren Head, a towering, skeletal creature with sirens for a head, blaring emergency frequencies as it lumbers through forests. Conceived by artist Trevor Henderson in 2018, this monstrosity thrives on audio terror. Its design is a masterclass in modern fear. The sirens evoke Cold War panic, the skeletal frame mirrors uncanny AI-generated art, and its viral spread through TikTok and YouTube Shorts proves how effortlessly folklore now jumps platforms. Unlike traditional monsters tied to specific cultures, Siren Head exists in a global digital subconscious, adapting to whatever nightmare fuel a new meme or ARG alternate reality game feeds it. Creepypasta, the internet's answer to campfire tales, has become the lifeblood of this new mythos. From the Russian sleep experiment's grotesque military test subjects to the backroom's endless liminal spaces, these stories weaponize modern anxieties. The monsters here aren't defeated by silver bullets or holy water, but by deleting files, staying offline, or outrunning glitches. They reflect fears unique to our time: surveillance, digital isolation, the fragility of reality itself. Even their creation is democratic. Anyone with a Reddit account can contribute to the lore, bending the monster to fit new fears. What's fascinating is how these digital beasts bleed into the real world. Slender Man inspired a stabbing in 2014. The Smile Dog meme reportedly caused PTSD in some viewers. Communities hold Siren Head watch parties during storms, filming every distant siren. This isn't just entertainment, it's myth-making in action, proving humanity's need for the monstrous never fades. It just evolves, so the next time your Wi-Fi cuts out or a siren wails in the distance, remember, the dark still holds shapes. And some of them are being dreamed up right now, one keystroke at a time. Beneath the crumbling ruins of an ancient battlefield, a farmer's plow strikes something hard, too large to be a stone, too strangely shaped to ignore. As the dirt falls away, the truth comes to light. Not a monster's remains, but the colossal femur of a mammoth, its curves and ridges eerily resembling a giant's limb. This scene, repeated across centuries and continents, reveals how easily nature's leftovers can morph into myth. From the cyclopean skulls of dwarf elephants fueling tales of one-eyed giants to dinosaur bones mistaken for dragon skeletons, fossils have long been humanity's Rorschach test. When medieval scholars unearthed the remains of Deinotherium, an extinct relative of elephants with downward curving tusks, they reconstructed them as the horns of demons. Even today, the Nazca monster geoglyphs in Peru, once thought to depict mythical beings, now seem to mirror the fossilized whales littering the nearby desert, their twisted vertebrae echoing the art's serpentine forms. But bones alone don't birth legends. The human mind supplies the terror, and few phenomena warp perception like sleep paralysis. Imagine waking in the dead of night, your body frozen, your chest crushed by invisible weight, while shadows in the corner of your room twist into clawed figures or hunched wraiths. Cultures worldwide have attributed these waking nightmares to supernatural attackers. The old hag of Newfoundland folklore, the kanashibari of Japan, even the jinn of Arabic tradition pressing down on sleepers' chests. Modern neuroscience explains it as a glitch in the brain's transition between REM sleep and wakefulness, but the visceral horror remains. When victims describe seeing a demonic woman with hollow eyes or a faceless specter whispering curses, it's no surprise these accounts seep into local monster lore. The line between neurology and mythology blurs, especially when entire communities share the same terrifying visions. That brings us to mass hysteria, the kindling that turns sparks of fear into wildfires of belief. In 16th century Strasbourg, a dancing plague gripped hundreds, their uncontrollable convulsions blamed on curses or demonic possession. In 1962, Tanganyika, a laughter epidemic spread through schools, its victims incapacitated by giggles for days. These events mirror the conditions that birthed creatures like the Jersey Devil or the Mothman times, when stress, suggestion, and collective anxiety fused into something tangible. The Salem witch trials, a textbook case of hysteria fueling monstrous accusations. The Chupacabra panic of the 1990s, media amplification turned scattered livestock deaths into a continent-wide monster hunt. Even the Slender Man phenomenon shows how digital crowdsourcing can manifest a shared nightmare, yet skepticism doesn't erase the allure of these tales. It deepens them. When a 10,000-year-old mammoth bone is held in one hand and a medieval giant's tooth replica in the other, the real magic lies in understanding how hunger for wonder bends fact into folklore. After all, every fossil misidentified as a monster was once a living creature just as strange, and isn't that wonder enough? The Earth doesn't need magic to be terrifying. It just needs us to look closely, then imagine what might be missing from the record. From the flickering black and white terror of Godzilla emerging from Tokyo Bay to the neon-lit, monster-infested streets of Cyberpunk 2077, mythical creatures have slithered their way into every corner of modern storytelling. These ancient horrors and wonders didn't just survive the transition from folklore to pop culture. They evolved, adapting to reflect our newest fears. Take Godzilla himself, born in 1954 from Japan's nuclear trauma. His atomic breath and city-stomping rampage weren't just spectacle. They were a direct metaphor for the bombs that leveled Hiroshima and Nagasaki, proving that monsters could carry the weight of collective grief better than any documentary. Flash forward to today, and Godzilla -1 2023 reimagined him as a symbol of post-war resilience, his scales literally pieced together from the wreckage of a broken nation. Video games have turned these creatures into interactive nightmares. The Witcher series doesn't just borrow Slavic monsters, it dissects them. The Bruxa, a vampiric femme fatale with a scream that liquefies organs, isn't just a boss fight. Her tragic backstory in Blood and Wine forces players to question who the real monster is. Meanwhile, Resident Evil's bioweapons, from the snake-like Neptune to the regenerative tyrant, echo the Chupacabra's legacy, blending genetic horror with urban legend. Even indie darling Dredge 2023 channels the Kelpie's aquatic dread, its shadowy sea creatures whispering eldritch secrets to sleep-deprived fishermen. Literature, too, has reimagined these beasts through fresh lenses. Silvia Morno Garcia as Mexican Gothic resurrects the Aswang as a colonial parasite, its body-snatching horrors mirroring the exploitation of indigenous land. In The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, a vengeful elk woman twists Blackfoot folklore into a blistering critique of cultural erasure. These stories don't just recycle old tropes, they weaponize them, turning monsters into mirrors for racism, environmental decay, and societal rot. But perhaps the most fascinating evolution is how these creatures jump mediums. The Wendigo, once confined to Algonquian oral traditions, now haunts Until Dawn's snowbound cabins and Marvel's Wolverine comics, its hunger echoing everything from consumerism to climate change. Even the humble Kappa got a glow-up, appearing in Pokémon as Golduck and in Studio Ghibli films as tragic water spirits. Their adaptability is key, whether as allegories, antagonists, or anti-heroes. Mythical monsters remind us that the dark still has teeth. And as long as we keep telling stories, they'll always find new ways to bite. Monsters live in the spaces between what we know and what we fear, the shadowed corners of history where logic fades and imagination takes hold. Every culture, every era has conjured its own nightmares, but why? Perhaps it's because these creatures are more than just spine-tingling tales. They're mirrors reflecting our deepest anxieties back at us. The Wendigo isn't just a cannibalistic horror. It's a warning against the insatiable hunger of greed, a lesson carved into frozen Algonquian winters. The Kraken isn't merely a sea monster, it's the embodiment of the ocean's unfathomable power, a reminder that nature's wrath dwarfs human ambition. Even the Chupacabra, with its needle-thin fangs and eerie, glowing eyes, taps into modern fears of the unknown lurking just beyond the edges of our understanding. But monsters aren't always cautionary tales. Sometimes they're born from the simple, primal thrill of a story told in flickering firelight. The Jersey Devil's winged silhouette darting through the pine barrens isn't just a folkloric warning. It's a spark of excitement, a jolt of adrenaline for those who dare to wander too deep into the woods after dark. The Tikbalang's backward-pointing hooves and forest illusions aren't just moral lessons. They're the stuff of campfire legends designed to send shivers down spines and keep listeners wide-eyed until the embers burn low. And then there are the monsters that exist simply because the world is vast, and humanity has always needed ways to explain the unexplainable. Before science taught us about tectonic shifts, the Nuckelavee's toxic breath was blamed for blighted crops. Before psychology unraveled sleep paralysis, the old hag pinned victims to their beds. These creatures fill the gaps in our understanding, giving shape to the formless dread that lingers when the lights go out. Yet here's the beautiful twist: monsters evolve with us. The digital age birthed Slender Man and Siren Head, creatures that thrive in the glow of screens rather than the shadows of forests. Our fears have shifted from the wilderness to the web, and the myths have followed. It's proof that storytelling is humanity's oldest survival tool, a way to process the terrifying, the uncanny, and the flat-out bizarre. So what's your monster, the one that lurks in your childhood memories or haunts your adult imagination? Maybe it's the elegant terror of the Kelpie, the tragic sorrow of the Selkie, or the raw, primal dread of the Wendigo. Drop it in the comments, because the best part of these legends isn't just the fear they inspire, but the stories they keep alive. And who knows, maybe your favorite creature will slither, soar, or stalk its way into someone else's nightmares tonight.